Well, speaking after her husband resigned in March as SNP Chief Executive, Nicola Sturgeon told our political editor Beth Rigby that the police investigation played no part in her quitting as First Minister.
There's also an ongoing police investigation to use of funds. We wouldn't expect you to comment on that, but there's a suggestion you and your husband will be interviewed. Have you heard anything on that?
No, but I am not going to comment on... I wouldn't comment on any ongoing police investigation, and I'm not going to comment on this one.
So you haven't heard, but it must have been put pressure on you and your husband. Hand on heart, did this play any part in your departure and your decision?
No.
Well, that was Nicola Sturgeon talking to our political editor Beth Rigby, saying that her stepping down had nothing to do with any kind of police investigation. Let's take you to our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillies, who's in Glasgow for us. Conor, this has just unfolded in the last few hours. Nicola Sturgeon in police custody. We know from her spokesperson that she knew this was going to happen. Not altogether a surprise for any of us who've been following this story, but still shocking for a former First Minister to be arrested and be held in police custody, questioned over funding and finances.
Yeah, I think many within the senior SNP ranks over the course of the last couple of months have been watching this play out and thinking it was inevitable that the former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon would be the next person to at least be questioned or asked to present herself at a police station here in Scotland to face questions around the funding and finances of the governing party, the Scottish National Party, but that does not make it any less of a shock this afternoon when that correspondent dropped from Police Scotland a short while ago that a 52-year-old woman, the former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, is now in police custody, is now detained by those detectives, facing questions around the party that she led for more than 3,000 days, the leader of this country for so long, the woman who took the SNP to continued electoral success, now faces hours of questions by detectives who are examining what has been going on within the SNP's finances. There has been lots of discussion around £600,000 that was raised for the purposes of a second Scottish independence referendum through crowdfunding, suggestions about where that money is or has indeed gone, suggestions and talk of misappropriation of such funding. Clearly, though, this is a live, active police investigation. But let's just talk through the timeline of events. Let's cast our mind back a couple of months now, and the first major big arrest in this case was the former chief executive of the SNP, a man called Peter Murrell, Nicola Sturgeon's husband, who was detained, faced 12 hours of questions before being released without charge. Then came that arrest of the former treasurer of the SNP, a man called Colin Beattie, who he too also faced a barrage of questions from those police officers before being released without charge. The third figure, Nicola Sturgeon. Well, why was that potentially predictable? Well, clearly she was the party leader of the SNP, but she was the third and final name on the latest audited financial accounts of the SNP. The other two names were the other two people arrested, Colin Beattie and her husband, Peter Murrell. So that brings us to this crescendo in this investigation so far. Police have 12 hours to question their suspect, the suspect being Nicola Sturgeon, where they can then take three further options. They can decide to apply for an extension on those questions for a further 12 hours. They can release her without charge pending further inquiry, which has been the course of action so far with the other suspects here, or indeed at that point they could decide to bring together some charges. So what will happen in the coming hours? Who knows? But this is a major moment for UK and Scottish politics.
Scotland correspondent Conor Gillies, thanks very much indeed.